Hey, thank you so much, Pastor Fernando and our worship ministry team putting together the incredible music as we've been worshiping at home online. And we're going to continue our time of worship with some teaching. I brought Pastor Darius along this week to help me teach.
Let's go.
It's one of those things where I'm looking for a ratings boost. So I brought in special guest star here. We're gonna go up a couple levels this weekend. Truth be told, we prepare the message together each and every week.
Yeah.
Whether Pastor Darius is in Buckeye live or just helping me with the preparation midweek. And as we started this week on the message, let's just do it together. Like
yes.
we love teaching together whenever we get a chance. We don't get that chance very often these days. So we're gonna take advantage of it. And one of the things I was thinking is, we're doing this together. I hope that you are watching church with someone. I hope that you are participating with someone right now. In this crazy culture that we're in this crazy pandemic, isolation is a real thing. But church isn't meant to be done in isolation. Church is a community experience. So my hope is that when you're at home online, you're sitting there with some family members. You invite some friends over. We can't have big groups. We've got some limits here, but we can have some people. We can have some community. And I hope that if you don't this week, invite someone next week to come over and watch and participate in church with you, because this is a community experience. Now, we are wrapping up this series called It's About Time. And it's about time to make Jesus Lord of your life. That's really what this is about, that fundamental question. Is Jesus in charge? Is he in the driver's seat or the passenger seat? Putting him in the driver's seat, making that decision. And today we're gonna talk about influence and what influence has on that decision.
Yeah, and influences are huge. And thank you again, Pastor Ryan, for letting me speak with you today. I really appreciate it. And as we talk about influences, we have some big things that influence our lives. We have some things that I think everybody knows about, and we'll kind of hit some of those first.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna speak to young people first right here. Hey, one big influence, maybe some of you are gonna get to choose what college you go to. And people choose colleges for a lot of different reasons. People choose based on location.
Yep.
People choose based on price, how much it costs. Some people choose it because it has their exact major. This is exactly what I'm shooting for, and they go that direction right there.
I would like to think their major is the number one reason, but sometimes it's the school colors, the sports program, lots of different reasons.
Not quite. I chose ASU because at the time it was the number one party school in America. So I bet engineers were all about that. So, but no, I've told my kids before as well. I told them, hey, when you guys get older, when you go to college, we're going to help pay for your college. I said, you go to an in-state place, we're going to help pay for your college. And so one of my kids was joking around, knowing that I went to ASU, and they're like, well, Dad, what if I go to U of A? And I said, well, then you going to pay, right? Because
I'm only paying for college.
Right, let's go. Forks up. But anyway, but universities, going to college, that's a choice people make, and the choice you make influences you.
Yeah.
And parents, if you have kids, we also do this when we choose what school our kids go to. Because for some parents, they choose to put their kids in public school. Some use private school. Some do charter school, Christian school, homeschool, all different types of options people have to put their kids in school. And so you don't know, or maybe you don't think about it sometimes, but when we place our kids in a certain school, we're allowing that school and that environment to have influence in their lives.
Yeah.
So school is a big deal.
Yeah, we know that it's gonna influence us, so we make that decision based on that.
Yes.
The other one is our career field, or where we work. The career that you choose, you know that environment is gonna have an influence on you. Talk about the extreme measures. If you join the military, that is gonna have a huge influence on your daily life, how you think about things, how you operate.
Yes,
it's such a controlled thing that's not for everyone. I'm so grateful and thankful for those men and women who put their preferences aside and sacrifice in that way to serve our country.
Yes.
That's kind of the extreme thing. But then even just the company you choose to work for has an influence.
Yep.
If it's a formal company where you're wearing a suit and tie, or maybe your company's flip-flop shorts and you're playing ping pong at lunch. There's so many different environments. The company you choose to work for, the career field that you choose, is gonna have an influence on you.
Yeah, what also has a big influence on us are the friends that we choose to be and have in our lives. And friends are so powerful because we get to choose our friends. Some people are extroverts and they have a whole bunch of friends in their life. Some people like me, a little more introverted. I have a few friends that I've had for over 30 years now that are still in my life, and they have influence in my life. And here's why friends are so important. We read in Proverbs that it says, walk with the wise and grow wise, but a companion of fools suffers harm. And so you got to make sure you're surrounding yourself with the right people, having the right influences in your life, so that way you're making wise decisions and not foolish decisions with other people who help you suffer that. And so when I think that in mind, these are some of the big pictures, some of the big things we think about with influence.
Yeah.
But there's also some subtle influences we have in our life. Some subtle influences that if we allow, they'll actually may take us off track and we might not even realize it. And so what we're going to talk about today are more of those subtle influences that we allow into our life.
Yeah. The other word we're using, sneaky.
Yes.
There's sneaky influences.
Uh-huh.
What does this have to do with Jesus being the Lord of our life? I think that's kind of the fundamental question. We're talking about influence. This is why. That if we are making conscious decisions to give more control of our life over to Jesus, we're growing in our relationship with him. Guess who doesn't want that to happen?
Satan.
Exactly. We can kind of say this with a smile and kind of joke around that, if our vision of Satan is the ASU Sun Devil, like this cartoonish character, but it's not. There's a spiritual battle going on in the world around us constantly. There's a spiritual battle going on in our lives for control.
Yes.
The Bible is clear about what God wants from us. Full devotion. 1 Corinthians 10:31, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. Everything we do is an act of worship towards God. That's the goal. So if Satan is the opposite of God, then what he must want is he must want everything we do for his honor and glory. He wants to steal God's worship for himself from us. Now, if we simplify it to that level, we're going to miss out on the sneakiness of Satan, because Satan is the great deceiver. He's a liar. He's a thief.
It says when he lies, he speaks his native language.
Yes, that's what he does.
Yeah.
So if Satan came with just the obvious thing like, hey, I want you to bow down and I want you to worship me, I'd be like, no, I'm not going to worship you. I'm not going to go with those guys with the dark cloaks out into the forest and draw, that's super obvious. I'm not doing that. But that's not how Satan gets people.
Right.
That's not what he's pulling us to do. Satan just wants to get our focus off God. He just wants to get us off track. That he knows that he can't steal us completely away from God. If we have a relationship with him, that lasts forever. But if he can get our focus off, he can influence us in the wrong way. It makes a big difference.
Yeah.
When I was in college, I got my pilot's license. And one of the rules was called the 1 in 60 rule. That if you're off by 1 degree, over the course of 60 miles, you're going to be a mile off course. Now, flying, that's possible. Like if you're on the road, you're not going to get off course, right? If you're going on I-10, you're going to stay on I-10.
Unless you get tired and you start drifting off the road, but you shouldn't be driving when you're tired.
Should be driving when you're tired, right? It's easy to stay on course when you have a map laid out before you or a path laid out before you. But if you're in the air, you're just following a compass, a degree off, it's easy to be a degree off and not notice it.
Right.
And if you keep going without noticing it, you're going to be so far away from where you intended. It's dangerous.
Yes.
And that's what Satan wants to do. He just wants to influence just a little bit off course. And if we don't notice it, we're just going to keep going that way. And we're going to find ourselves so far away from where God intended us to be, in the center of God's will. It becomes dangerous. We have a hard time finding our way back.
Yeah, I think Paul says something about this that's really good for us to think about, kind of focus on for today. He says in the book of Romans chapter 8, verse 6, as he's writing this letter to the people in Rome. I'm gonna read it to you right here, and it says this. It says, the mind governed by the flesh is death, but the mind governed by the Spirit is life and peace. Think about when Satan tries to get control and he allows himself and his influences to govern our mind. The mind governed or ruled by the flesh, kind of our sinful, selfish selves, our human nature, our earthly nature, that leads to death. It leads to death, not only death physically, but also death spiritually, death emotionally, death of relationships. If we allow Satan to really get a hold of us and we really choose to just do what we humanly, nature, sinful self want to do, it's going to lead down the wrong path. But I love how it says the opposite of that as well. That when you look at the opposite of it, it says, hey, however, if we allow the Spirit to control our mind, then it's going to lead to life and peace. It's like a bonus you get thrown in it with there as well. Because Jesus, he's the Prince of Peace. And if we allow his Holy Spirit to really dominate our mind and our thoughts, then what's going to happen is we're going to have life and life in all of its fullness, like Jesus said, and we'll also get peace with that too. So what are those sneaky influences?
Yeah.
What are those things that people try to, influence us with that maybe we don't notice? We're going to talk about those for just a minute right now. Because I'm going to tell you one of them right now, a big one that's sneaky, but it's big, is entertainment.
Yeah.
The entertainment, what do we choose to use to allow to infiltrate our mind and our hearts? Entertainment is a big deal. And I'll say specifically, movies and kind of the things that we watch.
Yeah.
And I know that movie theaters aren't open right now and people can't do things this summer that they would have done in the past. However, what I will say is this: we can still watch a lot of movies, whether it be on Netflix or Vudu or Hulu or whatever you might watch.
I've watched more movies this summer than I've ever watched in my life. Let's just be honest.
Yes.
I have a little bit more free time in the evenings than I normally do.
Movies, documentaries, these things that we watch, they all have a subtle influence on our life, for better or for worse. And I remember actually, there's this one time where there was this show out that a lot of people were watching. And you and I, we didn't talk about it beforehand, but we actually watched, one episode of this show. And we began talking about it like later on together. And we couldn't even get through one episode of the first season of this show without going, yeah, that's not going to feed my spirit very well. That's not a good influence on my mind. Yeah. And yet a lot of people were out there watching it. And I'm not going to tell you what show it was because I don't want you to feel even more guilty or convicted by it. But what I will tell you is this.
Don't instant messages. We're not going to give it up.
I'm holding on to that one. But I just want you to cause it to make you to think about the movies that you allow yourself to watch. And not only the movies that we watch.
Just on that about the influence part, though. Sometimes they're trying to get me to believe something different.
Yeah.
But it's sneakier than that. If they can just get me to laugh at something that I know is wrong. That's a degree off.
Just a little bit at a time,
Just a little bit off.
Yeah.
Just to not take it as seriously as I should.
Yeah. And I'd even tell you another area of this is with the music that we listen to. If you're like me, maybe when you exercise, maybe you put on some headphones or some AirPods, and you like to listen to music as you exercise. That's a great thing to do. That's fantastic. And I want you to think about this with music. You are literally putting something in your ears that is right next to your mind, right next to your head. You are being influenced by what you listen to each and every day. So the music you listen to is very powerful. And I want you to know it really makes an impact on your life. It influences you in a certain way.
We both did student ministries for years. And we talk about the influence of music so often to students. And the biggest thing, I'm not listening to lyrics. I just like the beat.
Classic.
Like a classic thing. But I would say like the beginning of a line, and they could always finish it.
Oh, yeah.
Because subtly, the words have made their way in. Like you might not have intended. Like
yes.
you might not, the words are wrong. It's bad lyrics. You know you're not gonna do that. But it's lodged itself into your mind.
That's right.
A degree of change, right? Just a little bit of influence.
Right, so true, so true. What are some other one of these things that kind of infiltrate our mind or influence
I'm gonna hit the big one. The big one, social media. Social media is a huge influence on us.
Yes.
And it does it in some subtle ways as well. Like there's the obvious, like you're going through your news feed and everyone giving their opinions. Like that's easy to see. Like you know it for what it is. But the subtle things that happen, I don't know about you, but just Adrian and I have been talking about taking a trip before or making a purchase in our house. Next thing you know, we go on Facebook and there's the ad there.
Oh, isn't that sneaky crazy?
Sneaky. Like there are some crazy things going on. Like I don't know how they do it, but it's scary, right? It's a little sketchy. What are they trying to do? They're trying to influence my buying patterns.
Yeah.
They're trying to influence. So the videos that come up on my feed, the frequency, that's all related to what I like and what I follow and who's my friend, that there's this machine behind it trying to influence me in certain directions.
Yes.
I just got to be aware of it. I got to be aware of it. The other one is just the regular media. When you go out and watch news, news always has a bias to it. Now, this isn't a big judgment on the news industry. This is just the fact that the reason why news has a bias is because every single person has a bias. I have a bias. There are certain things that I believe. So when I tell a story, I tell it from my perspective. Like what I believe leaks out into how I tell it. So in an industry like the news, if you have a bunch of people that have similar experiences and similar beliefs and they're all working at the same place, then that organization is gonna lean a certain direction. They're gonna have an influence that they're trying to make.
You gotta be careful not to just look at one news source.
Yeah, so I don't watch one news source. I've had to stop watching news on television because it just takes too much time to balance all the different ones. So I've gotten more to online, reading news stories. But I don't read one article. I'll read it from 3 different news places.
Yes.
And sometimes the bias comes up, hey, they're not even telling that story, but they're telling the story, and then they told a completely different one. And you just have to sort through it, knowing that there are people that are trying to influence me, not with just the facts, because I need to know the facts. I need to be aware of what's happening in the world around us. But there are these other forces behind it.
Yes.
And this gets it gets tiresome, right? To just constantly be thinking about these influences and the effect that they're having me on media and social media and entertainment and music and movies. What it makes me want to do, and what it makes a lot of Christians want to do, is just retreat. To pull like the NBA, where we're going to go into the bubble for the next 2 months. We're going to go into the NBA bubble. We're going to go into the Christian bubble and retreat in there and just not have to worry about any other influences. You know what the problem with that is, though? It's literally you have to take the Great Commission and rip it out of the Bible. Jesus tells us, go into all the world and preach the gospel.
Yes.
That we're to be ambassadors of Christ in the world around us. So we have to step into culture. We have to be aware of what's going on, which means that we have to know what's going on in entertainment and the news and be able to have conversations and build bridges with people. But be aware that it's influencing us.
Right.
So how do we fight against it? It isn't retreat. I like to call them anchor points. Then we need to create some anchor points in our life so that as we go throughout the course of the day, we know that we're going to be influenced. We know that we're going to be pushed off course. But how long are we going to travel before we bring it back on course? That's the key. How do we shorten this up?
That's so key. And I would say there's a few ways we can do this, but I want to give you one very simple way that starts in the morning. If you want to put an anchor in the ground in the morning of how you're going to be influenced for the day, let that anchor be some focus time with God.
Yeah.
And I want you to think about how powerful this is, just some focus time with God. If you wear glasses or contacts, you're going to be feeling me on this right now. When you first get up in the morning, it's blurry. It's hard to see. But the moment you put on your glasses or your contacts, all of a sudden, everything comes into focus. You have great vision at that point. So here's the deal. It would be foolish of you, Pastor Ryan, to go through your entire day without your glasses on, only at the end of the day, finally put your glasses on and go, oh, wow, now I can see better.
Yeah.
Now it's in focus.
Exactly.
That would be foolish. So we want to put your glasses on first thing in the morning and get focused. Same way, spiritually, we want to get focused first thing in the morning. So this could look different for a lot of different people.
Yeah.
We're all different people. We all see things differently. We all view things differently. But our time with God, it should look differently, but it should be some focus time in the morning. And I'm going to tell you kind of like what mine looks like, just to give you a habit or pattern, and yours can be similar or different. I get up in the morning, I like to spend some time, first of all, praying to God. One of the first things I do, I begin praying that God, I'm about to read your word right now, so please speak into my life right now. I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you. I've already heard from other influences all throughout the day yesterday, right? Now I want to hear from you. I want to get my mind right. So then I reach for my phone. That's why I brought my phone up here. I actually love to read the Bible from my phone. I love YouVersion, the Bible app, great app. And so I get in the morning, I read that.
For those of you guys that are about to complain, send an email about it's not as spiritual on the phone. Are you reading the Bible on a scroll?
Yeah,
I'm just saying,
where it started, right?
I'm just saying, or a tablet, like the 10 Commandments. Technology changes. So save that email. Darius, I'm glad you read the Bible on your phone.
Thank you. So I'll read through God's word, and I love to read through, and I highlight some different things, and then I actually begin to write down some of the things that God has been teaching me. I love to just record it. I like to write down what God's teaching me because I don't want to forget it. I want to be reminded of it throughout the day or the next few weeks. I love to look back on what God's teaching me. I write it down so it's more memorable to me. It sticks with me a lot more. And when I'm done kind of spending my time with God and writing some things down as God's solidifying that with me, it's usually close to around 6 a.m. at this point, and I tune in to Pastor Ryan's daily devotional. And I got to tell you guys something. This morning I tuned in, and as I was tuning in and watching, I was listening to the content, being influenced, right? But as well, I saw the shirt that he was wearing, and I was influenced by that shirt you wore, so I decided to wear this shirt today for our message together. So I want you to know influence works in a lot of different ways. Thank you for influencing me, Pastor Ryan.
Nice. And honestly, the reason why I do the daily devotion, why I've kept that going, is just that focus time at the beginning of the day.
Yes.
It's you don't have to put a whole lot of effort in it. You just open up Facebook on the Palm Valley page, and you can listen to a 5-minute devotion just to start your day with God. I tell the kid, my kids both play instruments. How silly would it be for them to tune their instrument after the concert? right? You tune it before. So it doesn't have to take a lot of time, but you focus at the beginning of the day. And then the other anchor point is at the end of the day, and it's a time of reflection. Just a time at the end of the day where you pause the day before you go to bed, when things are quiet, to say, how did today go? Like, where did I drift off course? How did I honor God? I started with this focus. Was I able to maintain it? Because if you don't have that reflection point at the end of the day, if you don't check in and you were a degree off during the day, that degree off carries into the next day and the next day and the next day. And the next thing you know, you've drifted far away.
Yes.
This keeps short accounts, keep coming back. It doesn't have to be a long time. It can be very, very simple. And honestly, I'm a morning person. So naturally, it means the evening's the hard one for me to maintain. Like, I'm tired. Come 8:30 at night, I'm done. Like, I have to make sure I do it before then, because my mind's just tired. I'm just ready to turn in.
Well, I like how you said that, though, because when you really think about it, you can be a morning person, an evening person. Either one is just fine. And if you're going to spend an extra chunk of time with God, let it be when you're at your best.
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
That's what really matters the most. I'm at my best in the morning, so that's where I spend it. My wife is at her best in the evening, so that's when she can spend that time with God, that extended time. So whether you focus in the morning longer or you reflect in the evening longer, let it be a time where you spend a little bit more time to really allow that to sink in. But these have got to be our anchor points if we really want to make sure the most important influence, Jesus Christ, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, is truly the Lord of our life.
And that's it right there. Because I would imagine at this point, some of you are thinking, Pastor Ryan, Pastor Darius, I could barely do once a day. Like one time a day focusing on God is a struggle. And now you're saying two? Like, how in the world am I going to be able to do this? If Jesus is Lord of your life, we're willing to do difficult things, uncomfortable things, to maintain that. We can't control all of the influences of the world around us. We can't stop those influences from coming. We can't control that, but what we can control is I can control twice a day where I'm just gonna stop and I'm gonna focus at the beginning of the day, I'm gonna reflect at the end of the day. And it's gonna be difficult, it takes discipline, but it's worth it. It's worth it because I want life and peace. I want my mind to be governed by the Spirit, not by my own desires and the influences of the world around us. So I have to keep short accounts. The average person attends church 1.7 times a month. If you only focus on God 1.7 times every single month, how much drift happens between those points? How far do you get off course as opposed to every 12 hours? Every 12 hours. That's a big commitment, but can I tell you the payoff, the peace that comes from that, the life that comes from that, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I wouldn't trade it for the world. You know, that passage in Romans, the being governed by the flesh leads to death. That's really what the gospel message is all about, the good news message. It's all about control. See, if my natural response is that I'm gonna do things that benefit myself, that I like to do. I'm gonna be around influences that make me feel good. It's all about me doing what I wanna do. But that leads to death, separation from God. And honestly, even though I think I want it, I like being in control, it wears me out. The consequences, the little deaths that happen in relationships and broken dreams and lack of purpose and pain and hurt, all of that adds up over time that I see the life and the peace that Jesus is offering, and I'm choosing that. I want that. So how do you have it? You have to make Jesus Lord of your life. You have to give him control. You have to get out of the driver's seat and put him in the driver's seat. This is available because Jesus came down here to earth. He gave up his life as a sacrifice for our sin to forgive us from that rebellion so that he could be in charge. And if you're here today and you've never taken that step of putting Jesus in charge, you can do that right now. In fact, I'd encourage you to bow your heads and close your eyes for just a moment here. Just create a quiet space there wherever you're watching, and you can turn control of your life over to God. You might just pray something like this. God, thank you for loving me. I'm coming to you today because I want peace and I want life and I know I need forgiveness and I want you to be in control. So I'm accepting the forgiveness that Jesus paid for. I'm recognizing that my rebellion has caused pain and death in my life and the lives of others, and I'm sorry. And I want you to be in charge. I want you to be the Lord of my life. And I'm choosing to follow you. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. You know, if you made that decision today, it is so important that you tell someone about it. There's a couple different ways you can do that. They're online. If you're watching on our online platform, you can just reach out to one of the chat hosts and just let them know. Just say, hey, I made that decision today. They would love to pray with you and get you some information this week. If you're watching on one of our other platforms, or if this is just more comfortable doing this, you can text the word believe to 623-471-7177. Darius will answer it right now as you're texting. No, I'm just kidding. It'll go to one of our section hosts and they will follow up with you throughout the week and get you that same information as well. It's just important that you tell someone. If you're at someone's house and a friend invited you over today to watch the service and you made that decision, man, tell your friend. They would love to know that you made that decision. You see, we are a family, and the decision you made here today is welcome to the family is what I want to tell you. You know, this week, we're wrapping up this series on It's About Time. Is Jesus Lord of your life? I've really enjoyed it. If you've missed any of the messages along the way, man, you can pop back, watch those again. Next week, we're doing a special weekend. It's kind of a standalone weekend. We have a special guest speaker. You guys are going to be thrilled. Like, it is just a cool weekend. You do not want to miss it. Look forward to having you back again next week as we continue to meet online. And after that, we're going to launch another fun series about what we do as a church. Why does the church matter here today? So, man, we got some exciting stuff coming up. So thanks for helping me out today,
My
Darius.
pleasure.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you for the invite.
All right, and look forward to seeing you guys all back again next week at Palm Valley Church.